All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're trying to understand the mind of a woman who goes totally silent after, get this, shooting her husband.
Yeah, it's a real head-scratcher, this whole thing. We're talking about The Silent Patient, this psychological thriller by Alex Michaelides, and let me tell you, it'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about, well, truth, sanity, the whole shebang.
Seriously, this book will mess with your head.
It really digs into those dark corners of the human psyche. What's wild is we're piecing together this puzzle with these, fragmented personal accounts, even diary entries from the silent patient herself. We're going inside the mind of Alicia Berenson.
A famous painter, right?
Exactly. She was at the top of her game, and then, bam, she shoots her husband, Gabriel. And not just once, 6 times in the face. And then, poof, silence. Never speaks another word.
It's chilling, honestly. That kind of silence, it just screams that something's deeply, deeply wrong.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out why. And that's where Theo Faber comes in, right?
Yeah, Theo, he's our guy. A psychotherapist who is absolutely determined to break through to Alicia. He's like a dog with a bone. He will not let this go.
I mean, you can tell right away that he's captivated by her story. But is it just professional curiosity? I mean, we learned pretty early on that Theo's got his own baggage, anxiety, even a suicide attempt when he was younger.
Oh, absolutely. Theo's a very complicated character. And yeah, that past trauma, it definitely fuels his obsession with Alicia. It's like he sees a part of himself in her silence. He needs to understand her to understand himself.
So he's projecting his own need to be heard onto her.
In a way, yeah. Which, can be a dangerous game. But to his credit, he dives headfirst into her life. He talks to her art dealer, Jean-Felix, who seems a little too enamored with Alicia, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, kind of like he's more in love with her talent than with her as a person.
Exactly. And he uncovers this whole other layer to Alicia's past suicide attempt after her father's death. Turns out things weren't as picture perfect as everyone thought.
Wow, so there's a history of trauma there. I wonder if that has anything to do with her silence.
Well, hold on, because it gets even more complicated. Theo, he's really on a roll now, tracks down her childhood home, even meets her stepbrother, Paul, and let's just say Paul paints a less than stellar picture of their aunt. Actually implies that she was abusive, maybe even responsible for their father's death, who died in a fire.
Hold on, their aunt might have been responsible, and that's some family drama right there. We're starting to get a clearer picture of what Alicia was dealing with even before Gabriel.
Yeah, and get this. When Theo confronts Alicia with this information, she actually responds, well, kind of. She shows him this new painting. The Grove, the psychiatric facility, engulfed in flames, with Theo carrying Alicia to safety.
So she's communicating, but through her art. And Theo is right at the center of it. It's clear he's gotten to her, but how deep does that connection really go?
Yeah.
Because let's not forget, she's not saying a word in their actual session.
Exactly. We're getting glimpses, but the big picture, still a mystery.
We're just getting started with this deep dive, and it's already clear that The Silent Patient is more than just a thriller. It's a psychological puzzle that'll keep us guessing until the very end. It's like, we're trying to solve this puzzle, but half the pieces are missing.
And the pieces we do have, they don't always seem to fit.
Exactly. We've got Theo running around playing detective, but what's really going on inside Alicia's head, to really get her, I think we need to look at those diary entries.
Yeah, absolutely. Those diary entries are key here. They give us this whole other perspective on her relationship with Gabriel before the
murder. Yeah. So what do they say? Was Alicia actually happy?
Well, it's not that simple. The diaries show a woman, deeply in love with her husband. I mean, you see these little everyday moments, the heat wave they were struggling through, these walks they'd take, her trying to paint him. But at the same time, there's this undercurrent of anxiety, these recurring dreams, It's a complicated picture. Definitely not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, no kidding. She keeps mentioning this feeling of being watched, like someone's always there lurking in the shadows. And it seems like that paranoia really kicks in after Gabriel's brother Max comes to visit.
Right. That visit definitely seems to mess with her head. And, to be fair, it turns out Alicia had stopped taking her medication, the one she was prescribed after her father died. That could explain some of the heightened anxiety, maybe even hallucinations.
So her grip on reality is slipping, and then this visit from Max just sends her over the edge.
It's like her mind is this pressure cooker and things are just, building and building.
And that's when we get these really vivid images in her diary. Like that willow tree. She keeps coming back to it.
That willow tree is really interesting, right? It was like a sanctuary for her as a child, a place of peace. But then she starts connecting it to her mother's death, and it takes on this, darker meaning. It's the symbol of her loss and her trauma.
It's like she's trying to hold on to something safe, but everything keeps getting tangled up with her pain.
Exactly. And keep in mind, all of this is happening against the backdrop of her growing paranoia, those silent phone calls, that shadowy figure outside her studio.
Oh, and don't forget about that creepy visit Theo made to her childhood home. Her aunt Lydia swore up and down that Alicia painted this horrible portrait of her, but Alicia didn't remember painting it at all.
It's like someone is trying to gaslight her, right? Make her question her own memories, her own sanity.
And that just throws another log on the fire, you know? It's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's in Alicia's head.
And that's what makes the story so gripping. The lines are blurring, and we're left wondering, is she really in danger, or is it all in her mind?
And just when the tension is at its peak, her diary ends. She decides to confront Max, the person she believes is behind it all. And then silence.
Talk about a cliffhanger, right? It's like the moment before a storm breaks, you can just feel it in the air.
And that's when Theo's sessions with Alicia take this crazy turn. She finally starts talking. She shares her version of what happened the night Gabriel was killed.
And it's intense, you know? She describes this man breaking into their home, tying her up, forcing her to watch as he,
Shoots Gabriel 6 times.
Yeah. But even though she's finally speaking, her story is, fragmented. There are these gaps, these details that don't quite add up. And Theo, as he's listening, he starts noticing these parallels between what she's saying and this Greek myth, the story of Alcestis.
Wait a minute, Alcestis. Isn't that the name of the painting Alicia made after the murder? The one Theo found so fascinating.
Exactly. And in the myth, Alcestis, she sacrifices herself for her husband, but then she comes back from the underworld, and guess what? She refuses to speak, just like Alicia.
Chills. Literal chills. So is she trying to tell us something? Is her silence a form of sacrifice? Or is it something else entirely?
That's the million-dollar question. Is she a victim finding her voice through this myth? Or is there something more, something darker, hiding beneath the surface?
Okay, so we have a lot to unpack here. We've got a wife who claims she's innocent, a dead husband, and a therapist who seems to be losing his grip on reality.
And we can't forget about Max, right? Alicia points the finger at him in her diary. But is he really capable of murder? Or is he just a convenient scapegoat?
So many questions, so little time. But we're on the case, people. We're going to get to the bottom of this. The tension is almost unbearable. We're so close to the truth, but it feels like we're caught in a labyrinth of mirrors, with every reflection distorted.
It's like the silence itself is a character in this story, a veil obscuring the truth. But remember how we talked about Alicia's diary ending abruptly? Well, it turns out there's more. She starts writing again, but this time her entries are different. They're raw, visceral, full of rage, fear, and a chilling realization. Theo is the man who's been watching her.
Wait a minute, Theo. But how? He's the one trying to help her, or so we thought. This changes everything.
It's a shocking twist, isn't it? Alicia starts piecing together the clues, Theo's eyes, his voice, a specific phrase he used during their sessions that she remembers from the night of the murder. It all comes flooding back to her, the terrifying realization that the man she trusted, the one who promised to help her, is actually the one who orchestrated the whole thing.
So Theo is not the hero of this story, he's the villain. But what would drive him to do such a thing? What's his motive?
Remember his story about his wife's affair? Well, it turns out Theo's obsession with Alicia is fueled by a twisted desire for revenge. He wanted to punish Gabriel for having an affair with his wife, Kathy. He wasn't trying to save Alicia, he was trying to destroy her husband's world.
So he projected his own pain onto Alicia, manipulated her into believing she was going crazy, even staged the whole break-in and murder. This is beyond messed up. He used his knowledge of psychology to twist her reality, to make her doubt her own sanity.
Exactly. And the most chilling part is that Alicia, trapped and silenced, couldn't tell anyone the truth. She was forced to watch as Theo framed Christian, knowing the real killer was still out there, free. She became a prisoner in her own life, silenced by the very person who promised to give her a voice.
This is just, wow. We started this deep dive thinking we were going to unravel the mystery of a silent patient, but what we uncovered was something far more sinister. A web of deceit, obsession, and a chilling look into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Theo's need for control, for revenge, blinded him to the consequences of his actions. He became the monster he was trying to fight.
It's a story that stays with you, leaving you questioning the nature of truth, the power of silence, and the fine line between sanity and madness. It reminds us that the human mind is capable of incredible love and unimaginable cruelty. And sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who hide in plain sight.
And maybe, just maybe, It makes you wonder about the secrets hidden behind the faces we encounter every day. Because as we learned from the silent patient, sometimes the silence speaks volumes, and we need to listen carefully to hear its whispers.